It must have been weirdly beneficial to have that extra chunk of time to kind of revise songs.
Yes. And I'm so grateful that I did, because come to think of it, it was this time last year when I had come over to the UK right at the end of February and played Unbroken with Prince Harry and the Soldiers for the Invictus Games choir. And I gave them the song Unbroken. I went to Abbey Road and recorded it with them. I started to do some press for the record, and the reaction was fine. It was like, okay, great, another Bon Jovi record, cool. I left there thinking, oh, well, I've made the record I want to make. But when I went home and had the benefit of pulling the plug, writing those 2 new songs, taking a couple of them off, changing lyrics on several others, remixing and putting it out, that's when it was complete. I don't know about other artists, but in my case, it takes me a year after the release of a record to come to terms with what we've just done. You know, because up until that point, it's the best record you've ever made. I'm a genius. You know? And then you put it out, and then you go and you play a couple of those songs and you go, well, that didn't work. You know, that was bullshit. You know, and you look back on the record and you think, I know why I got talked into doing that one, or why that one made it and this one didn't. And that happens to me with every album. But with this one, I had that benefit of these extra months, and it'll be part of the experiment. In October, I'll look back on this record and say, do I like it or not?
Right. Well, Lower the Flag is another standout for us on the record. I think with that one, you really do strike that balance of sort of conveying a strong message and expressing where you stand on, in this instance, the gun control issue. But you make it clear you want to open up a dialogue rather than kind of be provocative.
Provocative doesn't scare me as much as my assumption, because I have the pen, that I know the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. So I find it that my position should be to narrate as it happens. That's all. I think it's evident that my position is that we need sensible gun control and legislation. And I'd like to sell you a gun, but a bullet should cost $10,000 a round. You know? So, no problem. Here's all the guns you want, but a bullet's $10,000 a piece. So I don't think that we need automatic weapons in our living room and all that kind of stuff. But that's not the place on that song. My position on that song was to say, here's a list of all the school shootings. This is what happens. Put myself in that character of being a state worker, being told to lower the flag again, and it just makes you numb. I just wanted to pose the question, how would you feel if this was your family? Because I got so tired of hearing the politicians on the news. I'm sending out my thoughts and prayers to the family. How about go fuck yourself? You know, thoughts and prayers, really? A 6-year-old, my baby, was killed in school, and you don't want me to take guns out of swap meets. Thoughts and prayers, you know? That's horrifying. Fortunately, your country's much more sensible than ours.
In that sense, yes.
In that sense.
We've got our own problems, don't worry.
I know, but here's one where I could bash my countrymen a little further.
I guess there are probably some listeners who might be slightly put off by you tackling those kinds of issues in that kind of direct way. But, I mean, ultimately, it wouldn't be the first time that you did something like that. I mean, I went all the way back to Runaway today, and that felt like a kind of socially aware song, even then.
It really was, yeah. I mean, if you think about it, I was lucky enough to have had a roof over my head and had this opportunity to go to Manhattan and work in a recording studio as a gopher. But I would have a place to go, and then I got to get back on the bus and go back home. A lot of those kids that were on that bus and in that bus station were working the streets. And I'd see it every day. That was New York in 1980, 81, 82. That was it. You know, they were working the streets. It was commonplace to see girls and boys working the streets. And it affected me. I was aware of it. I certainly wasn't Bob Dylan or Woody Guthrie, but even at 21, I was aware And in defense of my naivete and single-minded focus on trying to become a rock and roll star, I was 21, and from where we came and the background that I had, you should be writing rock and roll songs. That's what life was about. Playing guitar and meeting girls. There wasn't much else that we had to worry about. There was food on the table and shoes on our feet.
And to go back to the new record, we mentioned Do What You Can earlier. I believe that one sprung from an off-the-cuff comment you made to your wife while you were working in the Soul Kitchen.
Yeah. When the pandemic happened and we pulled the record and canceled the tour outright, the Soul Kitchen still needed to serve that in-need population. The basis of the restaurant is volunteerism. And the inability for us to have volunteers washing dishes, bussing tables, meant that I was going back behind the sink to do what I did when we first opened the place. And that was something that gave me something to do while we were doing good. And unbeknownst to me, she had taken that picture and then wanted to put it on our social media site to tell the public, the restaurant's closed, but we're here. Takeout meals will be available. And so when she posted that picture, she was asking me for the hours of the day and the days of the week. And then I said, if you can't do it, you do it, you can't. It was the next day that I went, well, there's a chorus, and ran in here and wrote the song. And again, citing just what was happening, shutting down the border, the Canadian border, boarding up the schools. Yep, kids were all going home. The last paycheck in a world where, most people I know or from where I come from, they've got 2 weeks savings. They didn't know if it was the apocalypse. People were running to buy toilet paper and paper towels. So I wrote the song and initially performed it for a local television telethon to benefit charities here in New Jersey. And I played it just an acoustic version until we could record.
You work closely with John Shanks, and you have done for some time now. Is he a good sounding board for these songs when they come?
Yeah. I mean, John's a very talented guy for sure. I've worked with him now for 15 years. So we do have a good relationship. He's also able to convey my thoughts in shorthand. He's not technologically challenged, and that is a great asset. He's a really great collaborator. When we co-write a song together, he could contribute both lyrically and musically as an equal. And then when I wrote American Reckoning, he was definitely one of the people that was like, I'm afraid for you. Why do you need to do this? And I says, because that's what songwriters should do. If they choose to, they should use their voice to say something. And he was aware of the cancel culture. And I says, I don't care. Fear is not a motivator. But we had open and honest conversations about it. And it was he and Tico, but ultimately Tico, who convinced me that it was this close, but I was using the words I can't breathe as the title, and maybe 3 or 4 more times in the song than it needed to be. And that's when I took the line from the third verse and put it as the title, and American Reckoning was a much better title. But it took that conversation, and I wasn't afraid to have it. There's no ego involved in songwriting. And if there is, you're being short-sighted. So there was no ego involved. I just wanted to get it right.
And I think you co-wrote the song Limitless with John as well?
Yeah, John and a guy named Billy Falcon. Billy's an old collaborator, buddy, someone who I love. I was a fan of in the late 70s when he put out records. He's older than I am, but he made records in the late 70s. So the three of us wrote that one together. 2 songs on the record that the three of us wrote together.
I liked your call to action in the opening line there.
Wake up, everybody, wake up. Yeah, because it's a bit like Groundhog Day, isn't it? We were going, who knew what day it was, where we're at, what we're doing. And it's just like, okay, everybody, wake the fuck up. It's time to, get back out into the world. and then try to utilize some of that good old.
When you present them with a batch of new songs?
Generally speaking, David, Tico, Hugh all contribute greatly in the studio. Absolutely, positively. But I don't think it's necessarily critical as much as they'll try to help me get to the vision of a song. And whether or not it makes it is another conversation. But during the process, I don't think that they're ever critical, which is wonderful because it gives the song a chance to live or die.
Yeah.
You know, but they don't come in and go, oh, I hate this. Which, you know, could be, right? I mean, you'd see body language in a band member if he just hated the idea. But they're not. They're not like that. They will bring the song as far as we possibly can, allow me to rewrite it 5 times and not lose patience. And then if it sucks, it doesn't make the record. So, no, but they're not critical.
Right.
I was amused to learn that you had to spend quite a bit of time justifying your Sinatra line on It's My Life, because that always seemed like such a natural line to me, and it sings so well. I was really surprised that there was resistance to that when I read up on that one.
Yeah, Richie, he didn't understand it, which is fine, because to be asked to defend a line, and if you can, all the more power to you. And, you know, ultimately the argument was, I had just come home from making a movie called U571, and I'd just spent like 5 months in Malta and Rome. And I come home, and Frank had just passed, and I was always a big fan because he's like New Jersey's, you know, God. And he made movies. He helped get John Kennedy elected. He made records. He was still the chairman of the board until the day he died. And so I had a real admiration for him. My very, very short list of regrets, that's the biggest one, is that I never met him. But I brought that home from that film, really saying to myself, I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm going to make records when I want, movies when I want. If it takes a couple years between things, I've earned it. And so, like Frankie said, I did it my way. And then Richie said, well, you're the one